The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the Eco Hotel ballroom, silencing 200 guests mid-celebration. Adanna Okafor stood frozen, her designer gown trembling as she stared at her husband of 15 years locked in a passionate embrace with her younger sister, Chioma, behind the velvet curtains of the anniversary party they were hosting. What would you do if you caught your spouse cheating at your own anniversary party? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. The betrayal wasn't just the kiss, it was Chioma's hand resting possessively on Adanna's husband's chest, the way Emeka's fingers tangled in her sister's braids with practiced familiarity. This wasn't a mistake. This was intimacy built over time. How long? Adanna's voice cut through the sudden silence like a blade. Guests turned, phones already raised, capturing the domestic betrayal unfolding in real time. Emeka pushed Chioma away, his face draining of color. Adanna, this isn't what it looks like. Don't insult me. Adanna stepped forward, her Jimmy Choo heels crunching on broken crystal. She was 42 years old, a successful Lagos real estate developer who'd built her company from nothing while supporting Emeka's rise to billionaire status in tech. How long? Chioma had the audacity to smirk, adjusting her gold wrapper that matched the traditional Nigerian attire theme of the party. 3 years, sister. Since you were so busy building your empire that you forgot you had a husband. The emotional manipulation in those words hit harder than the infidelity itself. 3 years. While Adanna had been negotiating deals, attending parent-teacher conferences alone for their twins, and maintaining the perfect marriage facade, her husband and sister had been building a secret life together. The penthouse in Ikoyi, Adanna said slowly, pieces falling into place. The one you said was for international clients? Emeka's silence was confirmation enough. A guest gasped. Phones flashed. This public disgrace would be trending on Nigerian Twitter within the hour. The perfect couple, the power marriage everyone envied, exposed as a lie. Adanna's best friend, Ngozi, appeared at her elbow, trying to pull her away. 24 hours after her world imploded, Adanna sat in her mother's hospital room at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, trying to process the impossibility of the situation. Mama Chidinma, the woman she'd believed dead for 20 years, was alive, being treated for malnutrition and exposure. Would you believe your dead mother if she suddenly appeared after 2 decades? Hit like if family secrets shock you, and comment where you're watching from. She's stable, Dr. Adeyemi said, reviewing the charts. Physically, she'll recover. But the psychological trauma will take time. She's been living on the streets for years. Years. While Adanna had graduated university, built a business empire, married, and had children, her mother had been homeless in the same city. How is this possible? Adanna demanded. My father said she died. We had a funeral. Your father. Mama Chidinma's voice was hoarse from the oxygen tube that had just been removed. Chukwuemeka Okafor is the reason I'm here. The story that emerged was straight from a nightmare. 20 years ago, Mama Chidinma had discovered her husband's infidelity with his secretary. When she threatened divorce, he drugged her, had her committed to a psychiatric facility with falsified documents, and told everyone she'd died in a car accident. The emotional manipulation and power plays had been calculated, cruel. He paid the doctors. Paid the staff. Kept me sedated for months. Mama Chidinma's hands shook. When I finally escaped, I had nothing. No identification, no family, no proof of who I was. I tried to find you, but he'd moved, changed everything. I've been searching for 20 years. Adanna's phone buzzed with another message from her lawyer. The cheating spouse drama was the least of her problems now. So the man who walked me down the aisle, who meets his grandchildren every Sunday for lunch, destroyed your life? Adanna's voice was ice. And Ikena Nwosu, why did you try to slap him? Because he's Chukwuemeka. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What? Mama Chidinma grabbed Adanna's hand. Your father changed his identity 15 years ago. Became Ikena Nwosu. New name, new business. The next morning, Adanna's office in Victoria Island overlooked Lagos's chaotic streets, luxury cars trapped in go-slow traffic beside overloaded Danfo buses, a perfect metaphor for the collision of wealth and desperation she was orchestrating. She'd barely slept, spending the night planning with Ngozi and reviewing 20 years of documents. If your father betrayed your mother, would you plot revenge or forgive? Hit like if you believe in justice, and comment where you're watching from. Chukwuemeka Okafor arrived at 9 sharp, wearing a 3-piece Ankara suit that probably cost more than most Lagos families earned in a year. He looked nothing like the homeless woman's desperate description. He was power personified, a man who'd successfully erased his past and rebuilt himself as a tech industry titan. Or so he thought. Thank you for seeing me, Ada. He used her childhood nickname, a manipulation tactic that once would have softened her. This situation is delicate. Tell me everything, Adanna said, pouring him imported scotch. The same brand he'd served at her wedding to Emeka, she noted bitterly. Who is this woman? What exactly is she claiming? She says her name is Chidinma. Says we were married decades ago, that I had her committed to an asylum and faked her death. He laughed, but Adanna heard the edge of panic. Obviously insane. Probably saw me on television, read about my success, and constructed this fantasy. But with social media these days, even crazy accusations can damage reputations. Obviously, Adanna agreed, her voice honey-sweet poison. Do you have proof she's lying? I have a death certificate dated 20 years ago for a Chidinma Okafor. I have the asylum admission records showing she was already mentally ill before I supposedly had her committed. I have witnesses who'll testify she was unstable. He leaned forward. What I don't have is a way to silence her before she goes to the press. That's where you come in. The premeditated nature of his cover-up was staggering. He'd spent 2 decades building a wall of false evidence, buying silence, creating an alternate history. What do you need from me? Your PR firm. Your media connections. I want stories planted about mentally ill scammers targeting wealthy Nigerians. I want her discredited before she opens her mouth. He paused. And I need you to use your real estate network to find out where she's staying. If she's as destitute as she appears, she's in a shelter or squatting somewhere. I need to know her movements. He wanted his daughter to help him hunt down his wife. Adanna's mother. That's a lot to ask, Papa. You owe me, Adanna. Who paid for your university education at Covenant? Who gave you the seed money for your first property deal? Who walked you down the aisle? His voice hardened. Family protects family. That's the African way. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so sickening. Adanna pulled out her phone, scrolling to a photo she'd taken at the hospital. Is this the woman? Chukwuemeka glanced at the screen and flinched, a micro-expression he couldn't quite hide. Yes. That's her. Where did you get this? She showed up at my anniversary. Adanna's twins, Kelechi and Kamsi, pressed their faces against the window of her mother's house in Lekki, watching their father's convoy pull away after a tense custody exchange. They were 12 years old, caught in an emotional crossfire they couldn't possibly understand. How would you protect your children during a divorce war? Hit like if family comes first, and comment where you're watching from. Why is Daddy living with Auntie Chioma now? Kelechi asked, her voice small. And why does Grandma smell funny? Mama Chidinma, cleaned up after a week of medical care but still gaunt from years on the streets, flinched at the innocent cruelty of the question. Your grandmother has been through a difficult time, Adanna said carefully, pulling both children close. She's going to stay with us while she recovers. But Dad said she's crazy. He said you're crazy too, and that's why the judge might make us live with him. Kamsi, always the more direct twin, crossed his arms. Are you crazy, Mummy? The emotional manipulation Emeka was using on their children made Adanna's blood boil. In the week since the party, he'd filed for emergency custody, frozen their joint accounts, and begun a whisper campaign suggesting Adanna was having a mental breakdown, conveniently using her mother's sudden reappearance as evidence. No, baby. I'm not crazy. Your father is lying because he's afraid. Afraid of what? That he'll lose everything. Ngozi appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. We need to talk. Now. In the kitchen, away from the children's ears, Ngozi pulled up a laptop. Your father made his countermove. He leaked the story to the press, but he spun it differently. Look. The headline on Pulse Nigeria made Adanna's stomach drop. Tech billionaire Ikenna Nwosu reveals long-lost wife suffering from mental illness, a Lagos love story. The article painted Chukwuemeka as a devoted husband who'd spent 20 years searching for his beloved wife after she disappeared during a mental health crisis. It claimed he'd only recently discovered she was alive, homeless, and had been failed by Nigeria's healthcare system. He was now committed to her recovery and building a foundation to help other families dealing with mental illness. He turned himself into the hero, Adanna said flatly, and made Mama look like the unstable one who abandoned her family. It gets worse. Ngozi scrolled down. He's offering ₦1 million reward for anyone with information about his daughter's false allegations against him. He's claiming you're suffering from the same mental illness as your mother, that it's genetic, and that you're an unfit parent. The public disgrace had been weaponized and turned back on her. Adanna's lawyer, Barrister Okonkwo, called. She answered on speaker. The judge granted Emeka temporary primary custody, he said without preamble. You get supervised visitation twice a week. The hearing for permanent custody is in 30 days. On what grounds? Adanna demanded. He submitted evidence of erratic behavior, you destroying property at your anniversary party, making wild accusations against your father, harboring a homeless woman. Sorry, Adanna, but that's how he's framing it. He also has 3 witnesses who'll testify you've been increasingly unstable over the past month. What witnesses? That's a lie. Chioma, your former housekeeper, and one of your father's business associates. They're claiming you've been paranoid, accusing people randomly of betrayal, spending company money recklessly. Barrister Okonkwo sighed. It's all fabricated, but it creates reasonable doubt about your mental state. Adanna sank into a chair. So Emeka and my father are working together now? Enemies of your enemy, and all that. Emeka wants the divorce settled in his favor with minimal payout. Your father wants you discredited so your allegations don't stick. They're pooling resources to destroy your reputation. Can we fight this? We can. But it will be ugly, expensive, and public. Every detail of your marriage, your business, your family history, all of it will be dissected in court and in the media. He paused. There is another option. I'm listening. Settle quietly. Let Emeka keep the marital home and majority custody. Let your father keep his secret and his fortune. Walk away with your business intact. And at Lagos University Teaching Hospital's emergency ward, they found the source of the message, Dr. Amadi, the 70-year-old doctor who'd been present 20 years ago when Mama Chidinma was committed. He'd retired from private practice, but someone had tracked him down. His face was swollen, nose clearly broken, ribs wrapped in bandages. They said it was a robbery, he wheezed. But I know who sent them. Chukwemeka, or Ikenna, or whatever he calls himself now. Why did he have you beaten? Adanna asked, recording on her phone with his permission. Because I told him I wouldn't lie for him anymore. 20 years ago, he paid me to falsify psychiatric records for his wife. I was young, greedy, drowning in debt. I took the money. Tears leaked from his bruised eyes. I've regretted it every day since. When I heard she was alive, that you were her daughter, I reached out to the journalists you contacted. Told them I'd testify about the fraud. And my father found out. His people made it clear, recant the testimony, disappear, or die. I'm too old to run and too tired to lie anymore. He pulled out an envelope from under his hospital pillow. These are copies of the original documents. The real psychiatric evaluation showing your mother was perfectly sane. The payment records. The falsified diagnoses. Everything. Adanna took the envelope with shaking hands. Why give this to me? Because your mother deserved better. Because I need to make this right before I die. He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. But understand, this evidence makes you a target too. Your father will do anything to protect himself. Anything. As if on cue, the hospital lights flickered and died. Emergency generators kicked in slowly, plunging the hallway into eerie red emergency lighting. That's not a power outage, Ngozi said, pulling Adanna toward the exit. That's. The fire alarm screamed to life. Smoke began seeping under doorways. He's going to burn the evidence, Dr. Amadi said calmly, as if he'd expected this. Get out. Run. But when Adanna and Ngozi reached the stairwell, they found their path blocked by 2 men in hospital scrubs, men with the wrong shoes, the wrong posture, the wrong everything. Mrs. Okafor, one said, moving toward them with clear intent. You need to come with us. Do you think Adanna can escape? Should she have trusted the mysterious message? Like and subscribe to find out what happens in Chapter 5. Comment below if you'd risk everything for the truth. The confined stairwell reeked of smoke and desperation. Adanna's heart hammered as the fake hospital workers advanced, their intentions written in every calculated step. Ngozi gripped her phone, but there was no signal in the concrete shaft. Would you fight or flee if cornered by dangerous men? Hit like if you've ever faced impossible odds, and comment where you're watching from. My father sent you, Adanna said, buying time as her mind raced through options. Behind them, 3 flights down. Ahead, 2 armed men. How much did he pay? Enough to disappear afterward, the taller one replied. This can be easy or hard, madam. Your choice. Ngozi moved before Adanna could stop her, hurling her heavy designer handbag at the nearest man's face. The bag connected with his nose, a satisfying crunch, and he stumbled backward. Adanna didn't think, just reacted, shoving past him and dragging Ngozi back down the stairs. Run! Ngozi screamed, already ahead of her. They burst through a door onto the 2nd floor, racing past confused patients and nurses. The smoke was thicker here, real now, not just a distraction. Someone had actually set a fire. The parking garage, Adanna panted, remembering the layout from her mother's admission. They veered left, through the pediatric ward, ignoring the chaos of evacuating children and panicked parents. Behind them, heavy footsteps and shouting in Yoruba. They crashed through an emergency exit into the underground garage. Adanna's Range Rover was parked in the VIP section, but the men were too close. They'd never make it. There. Ngozi pointed to a delivery entrance where trucks idled, loading supplies despite the evacuation. They sprinted toward it, and Adanna grabbed the arm of a shocked driver. "Please, those men are trying to hurt us. We need help." The driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, took one look at the pursuers rounding the corner and made an instant decision. "Get in the back. Now." They dove into the truck bed among boxes of medical supplies. The driver didn't waste time. He hit the gas, tires squealing as they shot up the exit ramp and into Lagos traffic. 5 minutes later, when Adanna was sure they weren't being followed, she called Kayamika, the investigative journalist. "My father just tried to have me killed. And he burned down part of LUTH to destroy evidence." Her voice shook with adrenaline and rage. "Are you still interested in that story?" "More than ever. But we need to move fast. Can you get to my office in an hour?" They could. Kayamika's office in Ikeja was fortress-like, reinforced doors, security cameras, bodyguards who looked like they'd served in actual military conflicts. The journalist herself was a petite woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. "Show me everything," she commanded. Adanna spread out Dr. Amadi's documents on the conference table. Medical records. Payment receipts. Falsified diagnoses. And the smoking gun, a handwritten letter from Chukwemeka to Dr. Amadi, dated 20 years ago, explicitly instructing him to ensure my wife remains committed indefinitely. "This is dynamite," Kayamika breathed. "But I need more. Testimony from your mother. Proof of the identity fraud. Documentation of his current threats. I can get it all. But we have another problem." Adanna explained about the custody battle, Emika's frozen accounts, and the conspiracy to paint her as mentally unstable. "Your cheating spouse and your criminal father working together. That's almost poetic." Kayamika smiled grimly. "Here's what we're going to do. I publish everything tomorrow morning, all of it, simultaneously. Your father's fraud, Emika's infidelity, the custody manipulation. We time it to hit during morning rush hour when social media engagement is highest. By noon, your father won't be able to show his face in Lagos, and Emika's business reputation will be destroyed. Won't that hurt my custody case? More public disgrace. Right now, you're fighting their narrative. They control the story. We flip it. Make you the heroic daughter who uncovered corruption, the betrayed wife who refused to be silenced. Nigerian women will rally behind you, trust me, I've seen it happen." Kayamika leaned forward. "But I need you to understand the cost. Your father will retaliate. Emika will fight dirty. Your children will read these stories someday. Are you prepared for that?" Adanna thought about Mama Chidinma's 20 years of suffering. About Kelechi and Kamsi learning that their grandfather was a monster and their father a cheat. About the financial revenge she still hadn't secured. Do it. Publish everything. They spent 4 hours preparing the exposé, recording Mama Chidinma's testimony, documenting the timeline of events, even tracking down other victims of her father's schemes. "Turned out so you're here because you need me to handle Chioma," Adanna said slowly. "This isn't about the twins or making amends. You want me to use my exposé to destroy my sister before she destroys you. I want us both to survive this. Yes, I cheated. Yes, I'm a terrible husband. But I'm still the father of your children, and they need both of us functional, not destroyed." Emika's voice dropped. "Your father has already proven he'll kill to protect his secrets. What do you think he'll do to Chioma when he finds out she's blackmailing him? That's her problem. Is it? Because last I checked, she's still your sister. Your mother's daughter. Are you really going to let your father murder her?" The question hit harder than Adanna wanted to admit. Despite everything, despite the infidelity and the public humiliation, Chioma was blood. Mama Chidinma's child. "I need to think about this. You have until sunrise. That's when Kayamika's story goes live, and once it does, there's no going back." Emika moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. About the cheating, about Chioma, about all of it. I loved you once, Adanna. I think I still do, in my own broken way. Love doesn't look like what you did to me. No. It doesn't." He left, and the bodyguard secured the door behind him. Adanna woke Mama Chidinma and explained the situation. Her mother listened in silence, then said something Adanna wasn't expecting: "Save your sister. Mama, she betrayed us both. She slept with my husband for 3 years. And I spent 20 years homeless while my daughters grew up without me. I lost those years because your father chose revenge over compassion." Mama Chidinma gripped Adanna's hands. "Don't become him. Don't become so focused on revenge that you lose your humanity. So I'm supposed to just forgive her? No. But you can choose not to let her die. There's a difference. Mama Chidinma's gold-flecked eyes, so like Adanna's own, were fierce. Call Chioma. Warn her. Give her a chance to run before your father finds her. That's mercy, not weakness. At 2 a.m., Adanna called the number she'd deleted from her phone but still remembered by heart. Sister, Chioma answered, and Adanna could hear the fear beneath the false bravado. Calling to gloat? Calling to warn you. Our father, both of our fathers, since we share the same blood even if we don't share the same values, is hunting you. He knows about the blackmail. Silence. Then, how do you know? Because I know everything now. And tomorrow morning, the whole country will too. Adanna took a breath. I'm giving you 12 hours to leave Lagos. Take whatever money you've managed to extort and disappear. Ghana, Benin, South Africa, I don't care where. Just run. Why would you help me? I destroyed your marriage. You didn't destroy it, Emeka and I did that ourselves. You were just the catalyst. Adanna surprised herself with the truth of that statement. And because Mama asked me to. She survived 20 years of hell and still believes in mercy. I'm trying to learn from her. I'm sorry, Chioma whispered. For all of it. I was jealous of you my whole life. Your success, your marriage, your perfect life. I wanted to take something from you for once. You did. But you also gave me something back, you exposed the rot beneath the surface. In a twisted way, you freed me from a lie I was living. The Lagos police were useless. It's a family matter, they insisted. Grandfather has visitation rights. Never mind that the grandfather in question was under investigation for fraud, identity theft, and attempted murder. Never mind that he'd just been publicly exposed as a monster. The system protected wealthy men, even fallen ones. If your children were taken, would you wait for the law or take action yourself? Hit like if you do anything for your kids, and comment where you're watching from. He's going to use them as leverage, Barrister Okonkwo explained over the phone, his voice tight with concern. Force you to recant your testimony, withdraw from the EFCC investigation, publicly clear his name. It's the only play he has left. I'm not negotiating my children's safety. Adanna was already moving, grabbing her car keys. Do we have any idea where he took them? His Ikoyi house is surrounded by protesters and press. Victoria Island property is frozen by the EFCC. He'd need somewhere secure, off the grid. The lawyer paused. Wait. He has a private compound in Badagry. Used it for business retreats. It's registered under a shell company, so it won't show up in the asset search immediately. Badagry. 2 hours from Lagos on a good day, longer in evening traffic. Send me the address. I'm going now. Mama Chidinma grabbed her arm. Not alone. Not to face that man without backup. The police won't help. Then we get different help. Mama Chidinma pulled out a phone Adanna hadn't known she had and dialed a number. Ayo? It's me. I need the kind of favor you said you'd owe me forever. Yes, that's serious. Badagry, within the hour. 30 minutes later, a convoy of 3 vehicles pulled up outside Adanna's house. The man who emerged from the lead car was built like a wall, with scarification marks on his face that marked him as Ogboni, one of the traditional secret societies that still held real power in Yorubaland. Mama Chidinma, he said, bowing slightly. 20 years ago, you helped my daughter when no one else would. When you were still, yourself. I swore I would repay the debt. This is my daughter, Adanna. Her father has taken my grandchildren. Then we get them back. He turned to his men, 6 of them, all carrying the calm confidence of people who'd seen real violence. Chukwuemeka Okafor has forgotten the old ways. He thinks money and modern power are everything. Time to remind him that some debts are older than his fortune. The drive to Badagry was tense and silent. Adanna kept checking her phone for messages from the twins, from Emeka, from anyone. Nothing. As if Kelechi and Kamsi had been erased from the world the same way her father had tried to erase Mama Chidinma. The compound, when they arrived, was exactly what she'd expected: high walls, security cameras, guards at the gate. A fortress. We can't just storm it, Adanna said. He might hurt them. He won't. Mama Chidinma's voice was certain. Whatever monster he's become, he's not a killer. He's a coward who destroys through systems and proxies, not his own hands. The twins are safe until he gets what he wants. Then what's the plan? Ayo smiled grimly. We give him what he wants. You. 10 minutes later, Adanna walked up to the compound gates alone, hands visible, phone silenced. The guards radioed inside, and the gates swung open. Her father waited in a palatial sitting room that looked like it had been decorated by someone with too much money and no taste. Kelechi and Kamsi sat on a leather couch, looking confused but unharmed. Mummy! They both jumped up, but Chukwuemeka raised a hand. Stay where you are, children. Your mother and I need to talk. He gestured for Adanna to sit. Thank you for coming. I knew you would. Let them go. This is between us. Everything is between us now. You made it that way when you chose to destroy me. He poured himself whiskey, hand steady despite everything. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go on television tomorrow and admit that your mother is mentally ill, that she's been feeding you delusions, that I'm actually Ikena Nwosu and have no connection to Chukwuemeka Okafor beyond a coincidental resemblance. No one will believe that. They will if you're convincing enough. And if Kayamika's outlet publishes a retraction citing new evidence. Which they will, once you persuade them. He leaned forward. You have 24 hours. Do this, and the twins go home safely. Refuse, and I'll disappear with them. I have resources you can't imagine, new identities, foreign properties, whole networks built over decades. You'll never find them. The threat was real. Adanna could see it in his eyes, in the way he'd already written off his grandchildren as pawns rather than people. This was the man who'd institutionalized his wife and faked her death. Of course he'd kidnap his own grandchildren. You'd really do it? Take them from their mother? I survived 20 years with a new identity. I'll survive this too. The question is, will you? He smiled, and it was the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. Choose, Adanna. Your vendetta or your children. Before she could answer, the compound's power died. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red. What did you do? Chukwuemeka demanded. Me? Nothing. Adanna stood. But I brought friends who don't play by modern rules. Ao and his men breached the compound through 3-point sight. Adanna took the gun from his unresisting hand. Mama, the twins, me, we all mattered. But you couldn't see past your own ambition. Ao's men secured Chukwuemeka while Adanna gathered Kelechi and Kamsi into her arms. They clung to her, sobbing, and she realized they'd probably been terrified the entire time, just hiding it well. It's over, babies. We're going home. As they walked out, Mama Chidinma stood in the courtyard, illuminated by the red emergency lights. She looked at her husband, the man who'd destroyed her life, for a long moment. I forgive you, she said finally. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying the weight of your sins. Chidinma. Don't. You lost the right to my name 20 years ago. She turned away. I hope prison gives you time to remember who you used to be before you became this monster. The drive back to Lagos was quiet except for the twin sniffles and occasional questions Adanna answered as honestly as she could. How do you explain to 12-year-olds that their grandfather is a criminal and their father is a cheat? How do you tell them that family isn't always safe? Are you and Daddy getting divorced? Kamsi asked finally. Yes, baby. We are. Because of Auntie Chioma? Because your father and I stopped being honest with each other. The cheating was just a symptom of something broken. Adanna pulled them closer. But this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. And no matter what happens between the adults, you two are loved. Always. At midnight, safely back in Lekki, Adanna received a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, expecting another threat, but something made her pick up. Sister. Chioma's voice was small, distant. I saw the news. About the kidnapping. Are the twins okay? They're fine. Are you safe? I'm in Accra. Using a fake name, living in a cheap hotel. It's not much, but it's away from Lagos. A pause. I wanted to say, thank you. For the warning. And I'm sorry. For everything. Chioma. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can never make it right. But I need you to know that I loved you. Growing up, you were my hero. And somewhere along the way, that love curdled into jealousy, and I became someone I don't recognize. Her voice broke. I'm going to therapy. Real therapy, not just running away. I'm trying to figure out how I became the villain in my own sister's life. Adanna found tears on her own cheeks. Maybe someday we can talk. Really talk. But not now. Not for a long time. I know. I'll wait. However long it takes. Chioma paused. Tell Mama I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there when she needed me. Tell her yourself. When you're ready. After hanging up, Adanna sat with Mama Chidinma in the quiet darkness of the living room. Do you think she means it? Mama asked. The apology? I think she wants to mean it. Whether she can actually change. Adanna shrugged. Time will tell. And your father? The EFCC has enough evidence to prosecute. He'll probably spend the next decade in court, even if he never sees the inside of a prison cell. His reputation is destroyed. Both his identities are worthless now. Adanna felt oddly empty saying it. I won, Mama. We won. So why don't I feel victorious? Because revenge isn't victory. It's just the end of one chapter. Mama Chidinma stroked her daughter's hair. Now we have to figure out what the next chapter looks like. The next morning brought news that shook even Adanna's exhausted cynicism. Emeka had transferred full custody to her voluntarily, along with a financial settlement worth significantly more than their prenup stipulated. "Why?" she asked him when he came to deliver the papers personally. "Because I watched you take on your father, the police, and a kidnapping in 24 hours, and I realized something." Emeka looked older, diminished. "You were always the stronger one. The braver one. I rode your coattails and convinced myself I was the prize you'd won. But it was always the other way around. That doesn't excuse the infidelity. No. Nothing excuses it. But maybe understanding why I did it, the insecurity, the need to feel powerful, maybe that helps you heal." He handed her the papers. "I'm leaving Lagos for a while. Going to Ghana to try to rebuild my business away from the scandal. The twins can visit whenever they want, but their home is with you." After he left, Ngozi appeared with champagne. "You did it. You survived the betrayal, exposed the corruption, got your children back, and secured your mother's future. Time to celebrate." But Adanna couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unfinished. Her phone buzzed, a video message from a prison holding cell. Her father's face filled the screen. "I have one more card to play," he said, and his smile was the smile of a man who'd already accepted his damnation. "Remember the offshore accounts? The ones you didn't know about? I've arranged for them to be liquidated and donated." 6 months later, Adanna stood on the rooftop terrace of her new office building in Victoria Island, watching Lagos's controlled chaos spread out below. The city looked different now, not kinder, but somehow more honest about its brutality and beauty coexisting in the same space. Can you ever truly move on from betrayal, or does it change you forever? Hit like if you believe in fresh starts, and comment where you're watching from. This is the final chapter. The past half year had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and painful rebuilding. Her father was serving a reduced sentence, 10 years for fraud and falsification of documents, in exchange for testifying against corrupt officials who'd helped him maintain his double identity. The donations to mental health facilities had created enough goodwill that some viewed him as a complicated figure rather than a pure villain. Adanna still didn't know how she felt about that. Mama Chidinma had used her portion of the settlement, 15 billion naira after legal fees and taxes, to establish the Second Chance Foundation, providing housing, job training, and mental health support for homeless women across Nigeria. She'd regained weight, her skin glowed with health, and she'd started wearing the traditional Igbo jewelry she'd once loved. But her eyes still held shadows that 20 years of suffering had carved deep. "Penny for your thoughts?" Ngozi appeared with 2 glasses of zobo, the sweet hibiscus drink that had become their ritual during strategy sessions. "Just thinking about how much has changed. How much hasn't?" Adanna accepted the drink. "The twins start therapy next week. Real therapy, with a trauma specialist who works with children of divorce. How are they handling everything?" "Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped." Adanna smiled sadly. "Kelechi wants to change her last name to just Okafor, without the Nwosu. Kamsi keeps asking when he can visit his grandfather in prison. They're processing differently, but they're processing." "And Emeka?" "Building a new tech startup in Accra. He video calls the twins twice a week. We're civil. Maybe we'll even be friends someday, in that distant way that ex-spouses who've survived war can be friends." Adanna took a sip of her drink. Chioma reached out again. "She's been in therapy for 5 months now. Wants to come home for Christmas, see Mama, meet the twins as herself instead of as the villain. Are you going to let her?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to punish her forever. Part of me remembers that we used to be sisters who loved each other before we became women who destroyed each other." Adanna set down her glass. "Mama says forgiveness isn't about letting people back into your life, it's about refusing to let their actions define your future. I'm still figuring out what that means." Her phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Amadi, who'd become an unlikely ally after the hospital fire. "The Nigerian Medical Association is investigating all psychiatric institutions for evidence of falsified commitments. Your mother's case opened a Pandora's box. 17 other families have come forward with similar stories. 17 other women, erased by powerful men." The weight of that number settled heavy on Adanna's shoulders. This had never been just about her family, it was about a system that allowed wealthy men to destroy women's lives without consequences. The domestic betrayal she'd suffered had revealed a much larger pattern of abuse, corruption, and impunity. "I'm thinking about running for Lagos State House of Assembly," Adanna said suddenly. Ngozi nearly dropped her drink. "You're serious? The legal system failed Mama. It's failing those 17 other women. It will keep failing until someone inside the system actually fights for change." Adanna turned to face her friend. "I have the platform now. The publicity. The personal story that resonates. Why not use it? Because politics in Lagos will eat you alive. Because you'll face every form of opposition, sexist, classist, from people who hate that you exposed one of their own. Ngozi paused. Because it will reopen every wound you're trying to heal. I know. But what's the alternative? Go back to just being a real estate developer? Pretend the last 6 months didn't fundamentally change who I am. Adanna shook her head. I can't unknow what I know now. I can't unsee what I've seen. Then I guess we're running for office. Ngozi raised her glass. Because you know I'm not letting you do this alone. That evening, Adanna hosted a small dinner at her home. Mama Chidinma, Ngozi, the twins, and Dr. Amadi, who'd become something of a family friend through their shared trauma. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and only occasional references to the darkness they'd all survived. #IStandWithAdanna trended globally. International media picked up the story of the Nigerian businesswoman who'd exposed corruption and was now fighting to change the system. The election was close, so close that the final count took 3 days and a recount to confirm. But when the results were announced, Adanna had won by 3,847 votes. What are you going to do first? A reporter asked at her victory speech. Introduce legislation requiring independent oversight of psychiatric commitments. Establish a victim advocacy office for families dealing with identity fraud. Push for stricter penalties for domestic violence and emotional abuse. Adanna looked directly into the camera, knowing her father would see this from his prison cell. And I'm going to make sure that no woman in Lagos ever has to spend 20 years fighting to prove she exists. The crowd erupted in applause. That night, exhausted but exhilarated, Adanna came home to find Chioma sitting on her doorstep. Her sister looked different, shorter hair, simpler clothes, none of the calculated glamour she'd worn during the affair with Emeka. I know I shouldn't be here without permission, Chioma said quickly. But I couldn't watch you win tonight without at least trying one more time to apologize properly. Adanna sat down beside her, too tired to maintain the wall of anger she'd been cultivating. What do you want me to say, Chioma? That I forgive you? That we can be sisters again like nothing happened? No. I want you to know that I understand now, what I took from you, what I destroyed, why I did it. Chioma's voice shook. Therapy helped me see that I wasn't in love with Emeka. I was in love with the idea of winning something you had. Like if I could take your husband, it would prove I was valuable too. That's twisted. I know. That's why I'm still in therapy. Chioma wiped her eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for acknowledgement. That we were sisters once. That maybe someday, when enough time has passed and enough healing has happened, we could be sisters again. Not the same as before, but something. Adanna thought about everything she'd learned in the past 8 months. About her father's capacity for change, even in prison. About Emeka's genuine attempts at accountability. About Mama Chidinma's radical forgiveness that freed her from bitterness without excusing the people who hurt her. I can't promise anything, she said finally. But I can promise to try. To not write you off forever. To leave the door open, even if it takes years before you can walk through it. Chioma nodded, fresh tears flowing. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. After her sister left, Adanna went inside to find the twins still awake, pretending to sleep but clearly waiting for her. We saw you on TV, Kelechi said proudly. You were amazing, Mummy. You're going to fix things, Kamsi added. For Grandma and for other people. I'm going to try. But it's not just me, it's all of us working together. Learning from what happened, making sure it doesn't happen to others. Adanna pulled them close. You two are part of this too. Your generation gets to grow up in a world where we're talking about these issues, where we're not hiding the ugly parts. Will we see Auntie Chioma again? Kelechi asked quietly. Maybe. Someday. When she's done the work to become the aunt you deserve. Adanna kissed both their foreheads. But right now, we focus on us. On healing. On building something better than what we lost. The final scene of Adanna's journey came 3 years later, at the opening ceremony of the Chidinma Okafor Memorial Center for Women's Mental Health, a state-of-the-art facility funded partly by her father's settlement money and partly by government grants Adanna had secured through her legislative work. Mama Chidinma cut the ribbon, surrounded by the 17 women whose cases had been uncovered after her story broke. All of them were survivors. All of them were rebuilding. All of them were proof that erasure wasn't permanent if someone cared enough to look. This center is for every woman who was told she was crazy for seeing the truth, Mama Chidinma said in her speech. For every woman who lost years to someone else's lies. For every woman who survived and decided to turn her pain into purpose. Adanna watched from the side, the twins beside her, and felt something she hadn't felt in years, peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning. The betrayal that had shattered her life had also revealed its foundation, and on that foundation, she was building something that mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emeka, saw the center opening on the news. Your mother is incredible. You're incredible. Retrio. Continue. The twins should be proud of their family. It was perhaps the kindest thing he'd said to her since the divorce was finalized. She typed back, they are. Thank you. Another message came through, this one from Chioma, who was now working as a counselor at a women's shelter in Accra. Wish I could be there. Tell Mama I'm proud of her. Tell her I'm still working on becoming someone worthy of the family name. Adanna showed the message to Mama Chidinma, who smiled through tears. She'll get there. Healing isn't linear. The ceremony concluded with a performance by a choir of formerly homeless women, their voices rising in an Igbo hymn about resilience and rebirth. As they sang, Adanna noticed a figure in the back, an elderly man in simple clothes, watching from a distance. Her father. He must have been released early for good behavior. Their eyes met across the crowd, and for a moment, Adanna felt the familiar surge of anger. But then she saw the way he was looking at Mama Chidinma, with regret so profound it seemed to age him further. He didn't approach. Didn't try to speak or justify or insert himself into the moment. He simply stood there, bearing witness to the legacy of his destruction transformed into hope. Then, before anyone else could notice him, he turned and walked away. Did you see him? Ngozi asked quietly, appearing at Adanna's elbow. I did. Are you going to? No. Adanna shook her head. He came to see what his money built. What his crimes indirectly created. That's his journey now, not mine. I don't need his apology or his presence. I don't need anything from him anymore. That realization felt like the final piece of her healing clicking into place. That evening, back at home with the twins doing homework and Mama Chidinma preparing dinner like she'd done it 1,000 times before, even though it had been less than 4 years since her return, Adanna reflected on everything that had changed. The infidelity that had exposed her marriage's lies had led to discovering her father's greater betrayal. That betrayal had revealed her mother's survival. Her mother's survival had sparked a movement. The movement had launched her political career. Her political career had created real legislative change, laws protecting women from forced psychiatric commitment, resources for homeless populations, stricter penalties for identity fraud. The cheating spouse had inadvertently saved her from a hollow marriage. The domestic betrayal had led to domestic reform. The revenge she'd sought had transformed into something larger than personal vindication. Mummy? Kelechi called from the dining table. Can you help me with this essay? It's about someone who inspires us, and I'm writing about Grandma. What are you writing about, Auntie Chioma? Kamsi asked his sister. Teacher said we could write about complicated people too. Adanna joined them at the table, reading over their shoulders. Kelechi had written, My grandmother inspires me because she never gave up, even when the world told her she didn't exist. She proved that truth is stronger than lies if you're brave enough to keep telling it. Kamsi's essay began, My aunt made terrible mistakes that hurt my family. But she's trying to be better now. That inspires me because it means people can change if they really want to, even after doing something unforgivable. 12 years old and already understanding the complex truth that had taken Adanna most of her adult life to grasp, that people could be both victims and villains, that justice wasn't always satisfying, that healing required holding space for contradictions. These are beautiful, Adanna said, pulling both children close. You're both going to get A's. Will our family ever be normal? Kelechi asked quietly. No, baby. But normal is overrated. Adanna smiled. We're going to be something better, honest. About our pain, our mistakes, our journey. That's worth more than normal. Later that night, after the twins were asleep and Mama Chidinma had retired to her room, Adanna stood on her balcony overlooking Lagos. The city pulsed with life, generators humming, distant music playing, the eternal traffic creating a soundtrack of controlled chaos. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number, This is your father. I know I don't deserve to contact you. But I wanted you to know, I saw what you built today. What your mother built. And I understand now that the best thing I ever did was fail to destroy her completely. Because she became something greater than I ever was. You both did. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but it's true. You don't need to respond. Just know that my last years will be spent trying to deserve the mercy you've all shown me. Adanna read it 3 times, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies didn't require acknowledgement. Some stories didn't need neat endings where everyone reconciled and forgave. Sometimes the truest resolution was simply refusing to let the people who hurt you continue occupying space in your future. She thought about making one final post on social media, something about closure or moving forward or lessons learned. But what was there to say that her life hadn't already demonstrated? Instead, she opened her laptop and began drafting her next legislative proposal: expanded funding for mental health services in public schools. If she could give Kelechi and Kamsi's generation the tools to process trauma before it calcified into multi-generational pain, maybe they wouldn't have to fight the battles she'd fought. The proposal would face opposition. There would be budget concerns, political maneuvering, accusations that she was too personally invested to be objective. She'd be attacked, questioned, challenged at every turn. But she'd face down a cheating husband, an abusive father, a kidnapping, and a brutal election. She'd survived public disgrace and private heartbreak. She'd rebuilt her life from the ruins of betrayal and turned her pain into policy. What was a little political opposition compared to that? Adanna smiled, typing faster. Her story wasn't a cautionary tale about the dangers of trusting the wrong people. It was a testament to what happened when women refused to stay silent, when daughters fought for their mothers, when survivors transformed their trauma into systemic change. The betrayal had been real. The infidelity had been devastating. The revenge had been satisfying in moments and empty in others. But the healing, messy, incomplete, ongoing, that was hers. Earned through every hard decision, every moment of choosing growth over bitterness, every time she extended grace even when it wasn't deserved. 3 years ago, she'd been a woman who thought she had everything while secretly having nothing real. Now she had less money, more complications, deeper scars, and infinitely more purpose. She'd take that trade every time. As dawn broke over Lagos, another day of chaos and possibility, Adanna saved her proposal and closed her laptop. Tomorrow she'd fight new battles. Tonight, she'd sleep in a home filled with people who loved her honestly, in a city that was slowly learning to value its women's stories, in a life she'd rebuilt from absolute destruction. And that, she thought, was its own kind of victory. What did you think of Adanna's journey from betrayal to purpose? Comment below on which moment resonated with you most, the confrontation with her father, the custody battle, or the political victory. Did her choice to pursue justice over simple revenge inspire you? Share this story with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible after betrayal. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more powerful African drama stories about resilience, family, and transformation, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next emotional storytelling journey. Where are you watching from, and what would you have done in Adanna's situation? Drop your location and your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from our global community. Share this with anyone who loves stories about strong women, family dynamics, and the complicated path to healing. Your support helps us bring more authentic African marriage drama and relationship stories to life. Thank you for staying with us through all 7 chapters of Don't Slap Him, He's Your Missing Father. Homeless woman stops billionaire to save her father. Remember, betrayal can break you, but it doesn't have to define you. Until next time, keep believing in fresh starts and second chances. Folded hands, medium dark skin tone, red heart. The end. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double check responses. Sonnet 4.5.